happy living here, and I'm happy to be broadcasting from WYTV7 in the beautiful Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina, USA. Hey, friends, take a moment and imagine. Just try and imagine how you'd feel living the unique and distinct life you were put on this planet to live, doing work you love with people you love in places you love, and all the while creating something of real value to others. That's what I call a life of significance. And I can tell you it makes a very happy life. And so can my friend Trace Embry. He's my guest star today again, and he's back to share an update about his unique and distinct journey to his life of significance. Hey, Trace, welcome back to the show.
Hey, brother, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Just take a minute and tell us what you're doing these days to leave your mark of significance on the world.
Just doing my best to hear the voice of God, the will of God, and to obey it. Bottom line.
Very good. Okay, Trace, now we're going to switch things up a little bit from the show format. And you gave us an inspiring interview. It was episode number 43 back in November of 2020. And now you're back for episode 96. This is our very first alumni update for the Something Significant show. And today we're here to talk about a significant accomplishment you've made since our last interview. You've written and gotten published a book called The Miracles of Shepherd's Hill, an extraordinary odyssey of divine interventions. Just give our audience a quick overview of your book.
Yeah, quick overview is it's basically a 35-year or about bumper to bumper series of miracles that I challenge the reader to define as anything other than supernatural. I mean, it's just one after another for 35 straight years, and it's still going on.
It's great. It's a great book. I read it and really enjoyed it. So how long ago did you first think about writing it?
Oh, maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, things were happening long before that. I thought, man, this is crazy, but people were hounding me to do it. And yet I kept putting it off, and I had about half of it written around 2005 and said, I'm going to put it on ice and do some parenting books and things, about, I saw digital technology coming down the road and what it was doing to the brain matter of kids and adults for that matter. And I thought, you know what, I'll put it on ice and do something there. And then I was encouraged big time, look, your story needs to be written first, put those other things on ice. And that's what I did. And so we got it done, and here we are. When
did you come back and start rewriting it then after 2005?
A few years ago, I decided, let's go ahead and get this thing done. And well, I say a few years, maybe 2 years ago, actually, about 2 years ago. Yep. And then it just fell into place, and presto.
Yeah, presto, after 10 years. Presto. So what was the biggest personal challenge that you had to overcome while you were writing the book?
Being a first-time author, I mean, I've been writing for 20 years prior with our newsletters and different things that get out there, and certainly for our radio broadcast. But I don't really think about publishing, and we still don't have a publisher as far as marketing the book or anything. But it's been insane, the feedback we've been getting. The editor that did the book, edited the book, said, look, this has all the potential to do what the book The Shack did and beyond. That guy was a first-time author, but it was a novel. It wasn't really, something really happened. All of this really happened, and it's documented. And again, I want to encourage the Christian to read it, know that God's still working miracles. And I want to challenge the unbeliever. Look, you describe this as anything other than supernatural, and I'll buy you dinner.
There you go. All right. So that's personal challenges. What about the business challenges of overcome while writing the book, considering running the school, doing your podcast, all the business stuff that you're doing day to day, then to insert the additional item of writing a book?
Yeah, just the time. It takes time, and I'm as ADHD as any kid in this program, and I had to discipline myself and put other things aside to get it done. once I got encouraged by some heavyweight folks that kind of knew the story a little bit, and they said, no, brother, you got to do that one. And so just find the time to actually to wrap it up.
How did you do it? Did you put it at the start of your day, or at the end of your day, or did you have a routine?
Yeah, well, I kind of would devote the first hour or so and my weekends of each day when it was still dark.
Yeah.
And then on weekends I would do it just in my office, or sometimes on the deck of our house, and that's pretty much the plan. No real great detailed plan there.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge to write a book. I've written 3 of them, and I did the same thing. I had to set aside so many minutes, like 90 minutes every day, 5 days a week, and I did it the first part of my day. Then you can
Yeah,
everything else
yeah,
comes after that. And
yeah.
it took as
Right,
long as
yeah,
it took to get it done.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us a few of the biggest miracles that you describe in the book.
Well, wow. I suppose when you're flat broke and the only thing you have in your bank account is nothing in your savings account, $200 in a special account to put yourself through Bible college, which is where we were at the time, nothing in the checking account, and how do you buy a 60-acre farm that you knew you were supposed to have a year and a half before it even came up for sale, and then close the deal when you had 5 people standing in line to buy it from a guy who acquired it from the state because there was a triple murder involved in it. It was a drug operation, drug dealing operation. They were doing aerial drops in the pasture. And, we ended up with it, and we were way in over our skis on this. But thank God, the Lord owns the slopes, and he walked us through it. And it's been, gosh, since 1994 when we acquired it, it's been like floating downstream and just going where he says go, and that it's his ministry, and we're just stupid enough to obey him, bottom line.
Hmm. Did any miracles occur during the writing of the book as you're in the midst of the process itself?
Yeah, all kinds of things, but I think it's important to share one of the things that we had a David and Goliath situation where we had an 18-year battle with the Georgia Department of Transportation, which should have shut down any kind of work that required land. As a matter of fact, there was a Jewish appraiser, because we're an outdoor therapeutic program, requires naturistic setting and all that, and quiet and peace and quiet. And all of a sudden, after nearly 20 years of being here, or maybe it was over 20 years of being here. Yeah, it was right at 20 years, is when the highway construction started, right through the center of everything we had worked for all them years. And you think, Lord, did I tick you off somehow? What's going on here? And the long and short of it is, there's one of the appraisers under oath told the people there at the hearing, I've been doing this for 40 years. The guy that tutored me said, no one will ever be able to continue doing what they're doing once eminent domain, chops them up. He said, I thought maybe an acre, maybe a lot or something. These people did it with 250 acres ultimately. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, this could only be divine intervention. And this was a Jewish man from Atlanta who just on that one thing, he didn't read a book. I didn't have a book then. Just on that one issue, and so read the book, you'll find out just how many more of those issues there are.
Yeah, it's quite a story. It reads like a novel. Can you convey to the audience the story about the lighted cross that you're able to see from multiple places, including a home that you bought up in the mountains from Shepherd's Hill, from the school, and also from a piece of property you're looking to expand? Can you convey that story? Because that was pretty powerful when I thought.
Yeah, crazy story. When they put the highway through, the highway went through, just the construction of the highway, but they had knocked out 14 acres of woods where our old campsites were. And of course, we were scrambling try to buy other pieces of property and everything we needed to do to keep our doors open. And my daughter was inconsolable. I mean, she grew up here, she was born here. And when she saw those trees going down the way they did, how fast they went down, she was just, tears me up just talking about it.
Yeah.
But she decided to go out at night and pray to the Lord and ask him, Lord, why are you doing this to our family, our ministry? You know, did you bring us here from Chicago, 700 miles to Georgia, just to torture us like this? And as she was praying, she looked on the horizon in that void that was created in that 14 acres of woods, which you couldn't have seen before. And she saw a little light out there on the horizon. Now, let me back up because
it gives me goosebumps just because I know it's coming up.
I need a little therapy myself, and my therapist is an Indian. It's a 1800 or 1500, or is it 1800? A CC Indian, a motorcycle, but at the time it was a Suzuki, and so I was out there just clearing my head, and I ended up on a mountaintop in Tallulah Falls, Georgia, which is about 33 miles, I guess, or so from the farm at Shepherd's Hill. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I thought it was like in a different part of the world. The landscape was totally different. I'm on top of a mountain, and I saw this for sale by owner sign. Not for sale by owner sign. It was with a realtor. The farm wasn't for sale by owner sign when we landed that. But I thought, man, this is unbelievable. The view here is it's just one wall of mountains, and as far as you can see to the east and west and the distant north, 3 states you can see from there. And so just for the heck of it, I called the number, and they say, oh yeah, someone's going to get a real good deal here. This guy's in trouble. He bought this thing for $120,000, and just to flip it and make money on it. There's 2 acres there. And he said he'll take $68,000 for it. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine, thank you. And I went down the road, kind of forgot about it, told my wife about it. Well, 6 months later, it was a she actually. She calls me back and says, were you out at the Hickory Nut Mountain about 6 months? Yeah. Well, that guy will take $48,000 for it. So I threw my wife on the back of the motorcycle. We ran back up there. She said, Trace, we've got to get this. We didn't need it. All right. Well, we didn't think we did. The Lord knew we did. And so we acquired this lot with the expectations of just putting a deck out there and getting away from kids once in a while and just reading and overlooking that beautiful view. And so when I went to the bank to see if we could refinance, he said, well, you got plenty of equity. The climate had changed and all that. I don't mean the weather. I mean the financial climate. Everything went up and interest rates went down. So he's punching these numbers, and I'm like concerned that we're not going to get this loan. And he said, oh no, you got plenty of equities. I'm just wondering why you wouldn't build a house on it. And I said, well, I'm pretty nervous just getting along with the land. Yeah. I'm trying to build this ministry, and I could use $48,000 in other ways. He says, yeah, but look at this. And he showed me the numbers. And by the time the DOT had paid us, not paid us, but paid off the bank on that 14 acres that they condemned, we hadn't changed our payment in 2-3 years. And so we were knocking a bunch off the principal. And the long and short of it, he says, you can furnish it, put decks on it, put an extra set of clothes in there, appliances, furniture, toothbrush, and your payment to me after refinancing, is going to be $600 a month less than you're paying me now. Yeah. I said, what are you talking about? Yeah. And he's like, the numbers don't lie. Here it is. I said, well, that's a no-brainer. So I didn't do the first thing other than help my wife design the layout, and presto, now we've got a house that we can get away to and have now for the last 10 years, just to kind of clear our heads. And because we live in a double wide mobile home on the campus, and we get to the mountain house. We were just there this past weekend, had to come home because of issues going on at the farm. But once a month we'll get out there, and get away. We could go every night if we wanted to, but there's just so much to do with the farm.
And you were able to see that same cross.
Yeah, so back to my daughter's situation when she's
Yes.
she's praying, Lord, what are you doing with my family? She sees this light out there, and because the void of the woods there's no longer woods there. She puts binoculars out there, and guess what it is? Oh, let me back up again. From the house at Tallulah, there's 14 miles away in Clayton, Georgia. There's a 100-foot lighted cross that's 12 o'clock off of our back deck. And we took that and I carved it in concrete in our driveway. This is from God. This is God's sign that, this is a gift from him. Use it accordingly. And so, okay, fine and dandy. And the only place I've ever seen that cross has been in Clayton, Georgia, until my daughter put binoculars on that little light, and 40 miles away is this cross that we never would have ever seen before.
Yeah.
And we're like, wow. So 12 o'clock off the deck of my mobile home on campus, I got the same cross. And then 12 o'clock off the deck of the original farmhouse, which was the first place that we lived in, and that's a whole nother story all in of itself, the cross is there. Well, in the meantime, around 2016, we're trying to find a new campus for Shepherd's Hill. And I ran across a 70-acre tract, and I thought it was the Lord. And you have to read the book to get all the details. But after a year or so, year and a half of nothing really happening out there, I thought, Lord, did I make a mistake? Did I jump the gun? Did I get this thing because it was just a beautiful site? It had a view of the same 3 states out there just from 40 miles away. And then one night I was praying to the Lord, and I said, Lord, I'm going to drive out there. It's a 5-mile drive around, but it's only a matter of feet. It's actually,
As the crow flies.
As the crow flies, it's actually 1 mile from a deck that we put out there where we'll have a new mobile home to live in to get out of the traffic center of Shepherd's Hill. And I went out there with my truck, and I said, Lord, if I find that same cross, I said, I'll know that this purchase, regardless of what it feels like right now, was what you wanted. And lo and behold, I put that binoculars on the first light I saw out there, and it was the cross from 41 miles away.
Yeah.
And so now we have a cross, and the only 5 places I've seen this cross has been in Clayton, Georgia, right underneath it. Are 14 miles away on the deck of a house I can live in, 40 miles away of a house from a house I do live in, 40 miles away from a house I did live in, and now 41 miles away from a house I will live in. All 12 o'clock, straight off the deck of each one of those homes. And how do you explain that? Yeah. But again, as you know, you read the book, that's just a few of the things.
Yeah.
Admittedly, circumstantial miracles, but there is way more than circumstance,
Yeah. It all rolls up into a big, beautiful story. Okay, Trace, let's take a quick break because I want to tell everyone about 3 things. Why I love my far infrared portable spa, how to save $100 when they buy one of their own, and how their purchase will support a great big donation to our host, WITV7. Mr. Happy Living here. I love good things made by good people. That's why I love my Relax sauna. I bask in its healing far infrared rays every morning. In just 20 minutes, I sweat as much as if I'd run 4 miles. But I'm not exhausted. Instead, I feel great. And I've boosted my metabolism, burned calories, sweated away toxins, and some body fat too. What a relaxing and healthy way to start a day. A study in Finland found people who regularly use saunas live longer and have fewer fatal heart problems. So get the benefits of a sauna in your home for your family too. It's surprisingly affordable, it's portable, and it fits nearly anywhere. Go to happyliving.com and select Partners in Happy to get $100 off any purchase of $1,000 or more. and I'll donate another $100 to WITV7. Back, and this is the Something Significant show, and I'm your host, Matt Gersper. And my special guest star today is Trace Embry, and we're talking about his new book, The Miracles of Shepherd's Hill, an extraordinary odyssey of divine interventions. Okay, Trace, I've observed and written about how major life transformations and discovery of purpose often comes from devastation. Addictions, disease, death, disaster, some big crisis strips a life to its core. And in your book, you write, there's always a reason for tragedy.
Yeah.
Tell us what you mean when you say that.
Well, I think it answers the predestination free will situation. God, he writes the play. That's the predestination. And then the free will is he gives us our choice as to what role we want to play in it.
Mm.
And one thing I learned in our walk with God and in our struggles and pain and all, everything that we had gone through, including the loss of a son who is buried on the foot of the cross on Shepherd's Hill, is the importance of praising him and thanking him for all circumstances, because he doesn't put us through things without a greater blessing. I was just telling you, I had a pretty rough weekend, and I told my wife, I said, hang on, we're about to be blessed big time again, because that's how it's been for the last 35 years.
Yeah.
Think about this, Matt. Let's say you had to discipline your child, and you say you had to spank your young child, and your young child turns around, hugs your neck, and thanks you for doing it. I know you just have my best interest in mind, Dad. What's your next move? You're going to want to bless that kid, right? And our father's the same way. You get this, kid. You get this, right?
That's great. That happens so many times with my son, Trace, I can't tell you. So, okay, here's another question for you. What has Shepherd's Hill taught you about gratitude, which in the book you refer to as a virtue, and struggle, which you call a growth agent?
That God knows what he's talking about, and that science affirms what God's talking about. Because a lot of people, in the Christian world anyway, know that God's constantly driving home the idea of praise and thanksgiving. Certainly, the New Testament drives that home a lot. What they don't know is that when you're genuinely grateful for something,
Mm.
and that was the opposite of entitlement, which is the problem a lot of kids have. They're entitled, so they can't be grateful, right?
And adults.
And adults, yes, yeah,
Yes.
you're right. Thank you for saying that. But when you're genuinely grateful for something, you're shooting enough serotonin in your system as if you took one Wellbutrin or one Prozac. And so you can regulate your own mental health. Even Abraham Lincoln, long before the science behind it, said, I think a man's about as happy as he chooses to be.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So there you go.
So what are the top 2 or 3 things you'd like your readers to learn from reading your book?
One, that God is chomping at the bit to bless his kids. Number one, he's just waiting. We give him reasons that he can't too often, right? 2 is the importance of obedience. But obedience to God implies that you actually know him, that you can hear his voice. And 3, probably that God is still in the miracle working business, but we've got to give him room to bless us. God cannot bless a disobedient child, right? No good parent is going to bless a disobedient child. And I think if we take our cues from God and come from a biblical worldview, we can walk through this life experiencing what the Bible calls the kingdom of God, or the abundant life, that happy life, that blessed life that you're talking about.
Heaven on earth.
Heaven on earth. That's what it is.
Yep.
And the kingdom of God is within you, right? It's a there and then, but it's a here and now too. You can have a glimpse of it right here.
So here's I just recently heard this, and see what you think about it. It said the present moment, this present moment that we're in, is the intersection of time and eternity.
Oh yeah. And God lives in the eternal now, right? He
Always.
lives in the yes.
Yes.
And we just got to trust him that he's got our best interests in mind. And for whatever reason he put us in time and space, I don't have that answer. He does, and I'm going to trust him for it. And to the degree that I can get in his stride, not trying to force him into my stride, but get into his stride, man, life is good. Now, it can be painful too, but you know what? Wind sprints are painful until you win the championship, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how do you want your book to change people's lives?
I want people to understand the basic fundamentals of raising kids. That, you know, we've strayed so far from that. You know, we've gotten almost to where we've kind of idolized mental health, the secular mental health industry. We've taken our cues from them and tried to plug them into what the Bible says. And yet the Bible's never been proven to be wrong, but secular mental health is proven to be wrong quite regularly. And then I think the idea that there needs to be a wiser approach to digital protocols with our kids. I mean, so many parents are giving their kids these addictive adult toys because everyone else seems to have done that with their kids. And we cannot expect to submit to the cultural, America's child molesting cultural way of doing things and expect a good result. We have got to be intentional about swimming upstream against the culture, where our culture is, you know, diametrically opposed to the Bible, which is just about everywhere right now, and train our kids to be okay with suffering a little bit to swim upstream, whether it's being slandered or being made fun of or persecuted in whatever way. Jesus said, in this life, you will have tribulation. And really right now, Matt, it's just a matter of picking your poison. For 2,000 years, parents in other countries around the world have experienced persecution. It's new to us here as American parents, and we don't like it, but we're there now. America's a mission field, and we've got to look at it as such. And our kids are our first subjects in that mission field.
Very good. What's your next book going to be about?
Well, some general parenting stuff. We got something in the hopper right now. We do a 1 minute and a 30-minute radio broadcast. And we've taken and condensed a bunch of these 1 minute things, or 40 seconds, into 365, basically 40-second blurbs every day, kind of like a My Utmost for His Highest with Oswald Chamber devotional. And to where it's like these golden nuggets that people say, man, there's that stuff is rich. And we think that it might be something that would be very easy for a parent to read every morning. 40, who doesn't have 40 seconds? I can hold my breath that long, right? And stuff that you can take with you the whole day. So we're working on that. And but right now, I got to get out of the weeds with where I'm at with the first book. I got to get this book out there with a publishing agent or something, because right now, not the sales of the book, but the response people have gotten. We've got a building project, a new cafeteria and a new conference center and all this stuff that we're trying to build. In 2 months, with nothing to really promote the book, we've already raised $700,000 from people who say, I know this is something that God's in, and I want to be part of it. And so I really encourage your viewers to get a copy, you know, because it's going to encourage you major league. I'm a schmo. I'm just an average schmo that just said yes to God. Bottom line. If he said sell shoes, I'd sell shoes.
Yeah. You said that in our last interview a year and a half ago. Hey, during that interview, we discussed that the real magic of life comes when you're giving to others from living in your purpose. So, Trace, how does it feel now that you've encapsulated the miracles of Shepherd's Hill into a book that'll still be giving to the world after you and I are long gone? So you've encapsulated this story, and then the reader says, and I quote, "This book is a tangible reminder that all things are possible through God." And the reader continued by saying, "It's refreshing to read a book that brings you joy and hope. And there's no way you can read this book and not have joy and hope." And another says, "Trace Embry shows us how stepping out on faith is not only obedient, but it's also exciting." And another, "If you're looking for a modern story that is written to the caliber of the Gospel of Mark, then this is a must read. And filmmaker, author, and self-teaching activist Sam Sorbo writes, sometimes a true story is too much even for Hollywood. Whatever you believe about God, miracles, and parenting, this book is a must read. And finally, one reader exclaims very simply, inspirational. So Trace, how does all that make you feel?
Well, at the risk of sounding a little bit smug, or I don't know, it makes me feel like an obedient son. And that's all I'm really asking. You know, if I'm performing before an audience of 1,000 to the piano and everyone's yawning, but the master who taught me is on the edge of his seat and rooting for me, I perform before an audience of 1. I want to keep him smiling. If I keep him smiling, it doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks about it. But I can assure you, anyone can read this book and see that God is still doing extraordinary things in ordinary human beings' lives. I'm nothing special. I was a policeman, auto racer, and a roofer, for crying out loud. I roofed houses. And yet I just said, yes, Lord, to something I did not want to do. I write about that in the book. Did not want to do it, but it took a lot to get my attention, because I was mid-40s before we opened the doors for our first residential student. And I could have maybe started that in my mid-20s had I been a more obedient son. But once I finally got it, good things took place. And now we serve kids from virtually every state in the union and 19 other countries. And we have a radio broadcast as well, licensed to parent, which broadcasts around the world. It's syndicated on about 300 some stations across the country. And the emails and letters and texts and just stuff I get, cards, it's just, it's God's reward is all I can say, you know, because we're doing it in a more of a blue collar way. It's not a lot of cycle babble. It's just right to the point. And
you're living in your purpose. And that's what this show is all about. Ordinary people, or as you self-described, schmoes, doing extraordinary things by giving their time and their talents and their treasures to improve the lives of others. The show exists to inspire others to create what I call their own version of the happy formula. And it's creating the personal capacity that you need to take good care of yourself and your family. Have to have that. Discovering and living your purpose, God's reason for putting you on this planet, and giving to others, lifting them up and helping them to live better lives. So that's the happy formula, Trace. Capacity times purpose times giving equals happy to the third power. And that's really, truly, deeply happy. Does that sound about right to you?
It sounds great. And I think when people understand the other 4 things, origin, where did I come from? Meaning, why am I here? The purpose you're talking about, morality, that there is an objective standard for moral truth, and destiny. What happens when I die? Where am I going when I die? And our kids are coming to those, they're getting answers to all that while they're here. They have a whole year living in the woods with no running water or electricity for an entire year, digitally unplugged and loving it. I get parents all the time. He's got air conditioning. He's got his own room. He's got, blah, blah, blah. He's miserable. And yet he has none of that at your place. And he's smiling every time I see him. You know, how do you explain that? Well, because we've done things a little inside out here in America. And now we're paying the band for it. You know, you want to dance, you got to pay the band.
Yeah. Awesome. But let's wrap things up now with the lightning round. Trace, I love to read some of my favorite quotes and then have you respond to us, telling us what it means to you. First thing that comes to your mind, because we call it a lightning round. That's it. So this one's from Albert Einstein. There are 2 ways to live your life. One is though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle.
Fine and dandy. I think when we finally get to heaven, we're going to realize in God's economy, there are no miracles. Maybe you can explain everything by science. We just haven't discovered it yet, right? It's like, Jesus, how'd you raise that guy from the dead? oh, I could have done that. Yeah, you probably could have, but you didn't.
Okay.
So it's just trust in the Lord.
Yeah. From Oswald Chambers, you cannot attain to a vision. You must live in the inspiration of the vision until the vision accomplishes itself.
Well, that's the story of Shepherd's Hill, Matt, as you know. And there's a difference between dreams and visions. And visions or dreams are something, nothing wrong with dreams. And I think we need to dream. But dreams are carnally birthed. They're birthed in our carnality. It's the things that we want. Visions are things that God wants for us. Visions come from God, and we submit to that. And dreams can turn into visions. All right. And God can get his vision across through a dream. But we need to know that you have to live in that inspiration of the vision until the vision accomplishes something that from start to finish. That was a work from the Lord.
Yeah, love it. From A.W. Tozer, it's doubtful whether God can bless a man greatly until he has hurt him deeply.
Lived it, been there, done that. There's no doubt about that. Lord's full of little sayings in the New Testament about suffering and struggle, and in this life you'll have tribulation, and how we handle it. Why the Lord allows those things, I'm not totally sure, other than they make you stronger, they make you better, they make you more thankful and grateful, and maybe it's going to make heaven that much sweeter.
From G.K. Chesterton, before you tear down a fence, find out why it was put up in the first place.
Yeah. Well, we've thrown out a lot of biblical foundational principles for raising our kids today for, again, secular mental health theory. And I think Chesterton's quote there backs up, before you get rid of what you already know the Bible said about raising kids, you might want to just consider that maybe there's something there worth keeping. Don't tear down that fence. Not everything new and improved is really improved.
Good. Right from the gospel, Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. I think you know it. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it pretty much speaks for itself. We are to plan. We are to set goals and to have expectations. But not everything that God's called us to do, we're going to necessarily understand. A good son obeys first, gets the explanation later. And sometimes it takes years and years and years for that good son to really understand all the whys behind why his dad told him, to look both ways before you cross the road, or whatever the case may be. And so a lot of us have to mature rather into an understanding of the why. God wants to give us the why. Sometimes that why happens on the other side, right? Sometimes it's beyond our ability to really comprehend or articulate. He wants, but no, there is a why behind it. And even though maybe we're not capable of understanding it this side of the grave.
That's the thing I'm learning. We're just not capable of understanding. It's too big for us to understand. And
I heard it put this way, trying to understand the mind of God is like putting all the ocean in a coffee cup.
Correct, right. Okay, this is the show anchor from Goth. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. Yeah,
it's the idea of you grow where you're planted. There's a lot of things that we built here at Shepherd's Hill and did at Shepherd's Hill that we weren't able or in a position to have the best of everything. I mean, you read the book, that there's a lot of things here that, we don't have big white columns and brick and mortar and the big facade. What we have is substance. The style can come later. We're putting together a $4 million building right now that we can serve more people, more on a local basis, people who can never afford to come here or do what we do here, more of a preventative type thing. And so we never really heard from the Lord that we were to take on an undertaking like that until recently. But we did grow where we were planted. We put something up, whether it's a school building or a library or whatever, with what we had to work with. And some of those buildings don't know that they're just cheap buildings, you know. But what goes on in those buildings is not cheap at all. It builds a character and ultimately a relationship with God in those structures. So grow where you're planted. That's the bottom line.
Very
Get
good.
moving.
Very good. And now, folks, it's your turn to be a giver too. If you can hear my voice and you were inspired by today's show with Trace Embry, please share some love with our remarkable broadcast team by giving what you can to WITV7. They're a 501c3 charity on a mission to educate, empower, and encourage. They do good work with your kindness. Trace, I love how you live your life simply, by simply trusting God and trusting that He knows what He's doing, and you're just hanging on for the ride, not steering, just riding along with God. And I admire your simple belief that if your life, and perhaps your book after that, if your life helps even one person overcome negative or self-defeating thoughts to live better, then your sacrifice will not have been in vain. And I'm super happy that you've shared your wisdom and miracles on our show today. Will you just take a minute or two and share any parting remarks you'd like to leave with our audience?
Well, we haven't got off the first floor of a 100-story building, 100-story building as far as the miracles are concerned. But I just want people to know how much God loves them and wants a relationship with them. That I wrote the book not for me, but for you, all of you. I want people to be encouraged. I lived it. I didn't need to write it. I mean, I wanted people to know that this stuff still happens. Know that the culture has a lot more influence over the way we think in our worldview than we might understand, and that we do have to swim upstream and teach our kids from a very early age to swim upstream, to gain that favor and blessing that God is chomping at the bit to give us, and then of course to love Him back the way He loves us as much as we possibly can, with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love our neighbor as ourselves. And really, one thing we do at Shepherd's Hill is we teach our kids to follow the train of logic. It's called pushing the antithesis. See where your worldview takes you, and loving your neighbor as yourself. If 7 billion people on the planet think that way, we're living in heaven right there. But when everyone wants to do what they want to do when they want to do, what's the logical outworking of 7 billion people thinking that way? Well, it's chaos, and that's exactly what we're seeing in the world today. And so submit to the man upstairs, get in his stride, and reverence him. And I probably didn't do that by calling him the man upstairs. I apologize, Lord.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, Trace. And I also want to thank WITV7 for hosting and promoting our show so we can keep interviewing inspiring guest stars just like Trace and reaching folks just like you, ready to create your own extraordinary lives. A special thank you to our sponsors for the entire month, Relax Sauna and Happy Living. Remember, I'll donate $100 for every order placed during the month of May. So buy one sauna for yourself and give another as an unexpected gift of health to a loved one. Most especially, thank you, viewers and listeners. You'll find links to websites and social media and all things Trace Embry. Find him, friend him, listen to his podcast, Licensed to Parent, and buy his book, The Miracles of Shepherd's Hill. You can find it all at licensedtoparent.org. That's license, LICENSE, to parent, PARENT.org. All one word, licensedtoparent.org. From me to you, dear friends, I love you, and I want you to be really, truly, deeply happy too. So I want you to go to happyliving.com and take our happy quiz, because when you measure your happy, you'll focus attention on it, and focusing attention on it inspires change and learning and improvement, all to flow right into your life. And once you take the quiz, and it only takes a minute, then I hope you'll give some thought about what we can do together, you and me. Yes, give some thought to what we can do together this year to improve the happy of your world, one person at a time. Till next time, I'm Matt Gersper. You are awesome. And this is the Something Significant Show. And we're out.
Amen. Amen. Thank you.